Hey, what's up, card fighters? So I wanted to finally, after like a week and a half, bring my Graham Grace deck profile, which I did use to go X1 at Versus Games in Oviedo Mall. Really nice shop. Y'all should check them out. They host standard locals every Monday at 6:30 p.m. best of 3. So yeah, let's get into it. The best ride line for the deck, at least for me, the way that I currently have it set up, is just like the original Blaster Dark ride line, which is just like the 1 and the 2 of the Blaster Dark ride line. Just I find it works really well with the GRAMGRACE deck, is because you have certain cards that are on call abilities. It kind of like it work not just like certain cards that are on call abilities, but because I generally do like to rush with this deck, they'll sometimes try to deny me CB on turn 2, which means you'll still get a free call and like some interesting interactions based on the cards that you are playing in the main deck. Another reason is that we're not running the Wingull Marin in the ride deck is because GRAMGRACE does use like 1 to 2 soul every turn, so you do need that soul. But let's get into the profile. Running 3 copies of GRAMGRACE. You need this for persona riding this deck because it relies heavily on persona riding for you to make your ideal numbers and to close out the game. So that's why we're running 1 chalice in the deck, because you rely heavily on persona riding. So then we're playing 4 copies of Sadie. Sadie's I'm convinced that Sadie is a GRAMGRACE card, because I feel like Sadie doesn't really work in any other Keter deck except GRAMGRACE. Because when you call a card off GRAMGRACE, off of GRAMGRACE's first effect, its axe skill, you get to draw a card. So you're effectively replacing the card that you call. Sadie, when she's superior called, you get to draw another card. So now you just went +1. And then at the end of the battle, because of GRAMGRACE's third effect, you push her to soul and you draw another card. So it's like GRAMGRACE is literally like a walking pot of greed on legs, and it literally just needs like that little bit chilling of support more to become like a really good deck. I think it's like a really decent rogue strategy right now, in my opinion. But yeah, you're maxing out on 4 copies of Sadie. This is what you want to ideally call behind your Vanguard, because she gives herself power, because she lets you draw a card. Like, you draw a lot of cards in GRAMGRACE. That's why I don't run draw triggers. Like, this deck draws a lot of cards. Plus, you actually kind of do need the fronts, depending on your setup. And then we're playing 4 copies of Turner. Now, Turner is the new countercharger that we did get in set 8, which again, it works really well with GRAMGRACE, because GRAMGRACE generally wants you to play with a full field, and Turner rewards you after she's boosted. She rewards you with a countercharge and a soul, which you use soul every turn. But 4 copies of Turner. Playing 4 copies of this really nice promo card that again meshes very well with the deck. Gerd. What Gerd does is, like, Gerd simply, when he's boosted, he gets 5k until the end of the turn. That's it. So he's really nice, making 23k columns. With your 13k boosters, he can make 28k columns. On Persona Ride turns, he can make 48k columns, since your Persona Ride does affect the back row as well as the front row. But like I said, GRAMGRACE is, in my opinion, GRAMGRACE is like an insane card, and he's just like, it's just lacking the correct support cards that meshes really well with what GRAMGRACE does. And then for our rest of our 1-ofs, we're playing 1 of the grade 2 maple and then 1 of the grade 1 maple. The reason that we are running these at 1-ofs is because, again, you do really want to play with like a full field, so you really don't like board removal in any shape or fashion. So this just kind of helps you replenish your field, because again, you want to persona ride every turn. One key thing to note is the wording on grade 2 Maple's ability is that you can't call her if there's any other Maples on the field. So the way that this would work, if they're both in the drop zone, the way that you would do this is when you ride so you persona ride GRAMGRACE, you call out grade 2 Maple first, and then you call out grade 1 Maple. Because grade 1 Maple just checks for two things. If you persona rode, and it checks if you have another, specifically Pink Moth grade 1 Maple. So that's how you're able to call out the two Maples off of one reride. But getting onto the grade 1s, we're running 4 of this card that came out in set 7. It's just a 13k booster or 13k attacker if your opponent's grade 3 or greater. Again, works really well with the deck because if you can't call Sadie behind your Vanguard, this will still be hitting magic numbers behind your Vanguard for 23, 33 with Persona Ride. So that's why we are maxing out on copies of her because, you know, in front of a Turner, or behind a Turner, 23. Persona Road, 43. Behind Gerard, 48 with Persona Ride. So it just works really well with the deck and why we are maxing it out at 4 copies. And then another really interesting card that again, like, because you have no real support, you're having to use like all these like weird and cool cards that normally don't get used in Keter Sanctuary. Like Menacing Tiger, for example. We're running 4 copies of Menacing Tiger. This is one of those cards where I was talking about if you top deck call this off the ride line, it's really cool when you do top deck call this off the ride line or you do discard it and sack it for Blaster Dark's Twin Drive ability, because you're able to give your Blaster Dark a +5, which means you're swinging for 15 with Twin Drive, to whereas you would normally be swinging with 10, and most people, like, I don't want to get critted, so they try to guard you with a 15, to whereas now they can't guard you for 15. If they do, it's going to be a 1 to pass. But we are, it just helps build board. Like I said, you really do want to play with a full board in all stages of the game. You really, not in all but when you ride up to grade 3, you want to be playing with a full board, generally, more often than not. And it's also very helpful, the Soul Blast ability. Like I said, you're using 1 to 2 soul every turn because it's also Soul Blast on top of your GRAMGRACE's Soul Blast. But this is very helpful because without Persona Ride, your GRAMGRACE is swinging for a vanilla 13. You call a Menacing Tiger. Now he's swinging for 18. Persona Ride. Now he's swinging for 28. So it just makes your GRAMGRACE a slightly more threatening Vanguard attack, to whereas they can't just drop like a 15. Or they would have to drop like a 20k shield or 2 cards or even Perfect Guard your Vanguard. So that's the reason that we are running the Menacing Tigers. I did go over, I'm pretty sure I went over all these cards in the commentated match videos, so I'm probably going to link those at the end of the video. But you really should watch how this deck works, how it flows. I think it's actually quite amazing. You know, it's obviously not the best Keter deck, but I think it's actually really quite cool how this deck works and functions all together. And then 4 of our DPGs, I was running the one of the Blitz PG. I just have it in another deck right now. But, you know, if you have the Blitz PG, run the Blitz PG. This deck generally draws a lot of cards, so you can feasibly use the Blitz PG and it's not going to hurt you at all. Triggers, running 4 regular heals, 8 crits. I'm running the Into Soul crit because, again, you know, the deck really does use a lot of soul. Like, you're using a lot of soul, so I do have the Into Soul crit in there because of the soul, and also it goes to because it gets rid of itself after it boosts, which means it goes to soul after it boosts. So now you have that cleared, so you could play an actual booster next turn without having to call over it, is what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry guys, words are hard. 3 front triggers. I was initially trying draws in the deck, but like you just got to deck out so fast, it was really like quite insane actually. So we did move to fronts. Fronts just flow way better in the deck, especially on your first grade 3 turn when you do check a front. It's just like very like much that extra pressure. And again, even on a Persona Ride turn, it's that extra pressure. And then one of the Ketero T, I haven't really play tested at all the Cray Elemental OT in this deck. It might be better, but my general mindset was on your ideal turns, which are your Persona Ride turns, if you do check this, everything else is already swinging for relatively big, so you won't be needing like the two placements of 100 million. Instead, I feel like I would just prefer the drive checks because I'm generally drawing a lot of cards, deck thinning my deck, to whereas I would just rather have the opportunity to check more triggers. But that's pretty much the deck profile, guys. And don't forget to check out my Chaos deck profile. There is a giveaway happening. You want the instructions to the giveaway, you have to watch the Chaos deck profile all the way to the end, because I don't want to post the giveaway in every video and then I'm gonna have to go back to every video and see like who like did this, who did that. So please, if you want to be part of the giveaway for one of these lovely mats, our channel mats by the way, that we are selling, they're 25 a piece. We do take Cash App and PayPal, so if you do want to just straight out buy one and help support the channel, just DM me on Messenger, or you can reach me on my channel email, which is going to be in the description down below if you do not have Messenger. But that's it for the profile, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will be giving you guys more of these like really cool set 8 decks pretty soon. So later.